Through the magic of Zoom, we go to the Upper Peninsula, where we assume, Senator, that it's not snowing yet up there, sir?
Not snowing today, but I think it might later this weekend.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being on the program. Would you like to subpoena Robert Gordon to appear to talk about his role in all of this stuff, sir?
No, not in my committee. I'm not planning to do that.
Why not? Others are chattering about that, sir.
I had Robert Gordon appear before my committee several times, and I haven't felt there's a compelling reason to bring him back again.
You wouldn't want to ask him questions about the governor's nursing home policies?
We did very extensively when he came before the committee before.
And did you find a smoking gun?
Not at that time.
Do you suspect a smoking gun is there, sir?
Personally, I'm pretty sure that there's not going to be one.
Kyle, jump in.
So the prosecutor over in Macomb County, your friend Pete Lucito, is taking a look around, getting stuff or getting testimony, getting affidavits from folks whose loved ones died in nursing homes. They believe that the governor's policies contributed to their loved one's death. Do you not agree with that?
Well, I think that there's significant reason to be concerned about what happened. But I also know from our interviews with Director Gordon that the ability to keep statistics and proper data when all of this began in March, April into May was very poor. Director Gordon, admitted to that several times in front of the committee. Our ability to distinguish between different types of facilities and keep statistics between them was also very poor. And so I think that personally, I look at the rule that was put in place and the discussions I've had personally with friends who work at nursing homes and people who had loved ones in nursing homes here in the UP. And I think that there was a problem. I think that it made a problem. I think the policy was detrimental to and perhaps led to more deaths than a different policy would have led to. But I don't think that can be proven. And I don't think that there was necessarily some sort of purposeful negligence or malfeasance that went on that led to that.
Zoe.
So is what?
Oh, go ahead, Kyle. Kyle,
well, I was just going to follow up. So then do you believe that what this Pete Lucito is doing is political?
No, I think that other people have different viewpoint than I do on this and think that they can get to those data points and can generate a case, whether it's based on enough personal stories. I always felt that if I could have gotten folks who worked in nursing homes and people who had family stories to come forward and talk to the committee, that we could have potentially gone further into the process. And if, whether it's Mr. Lucito or others can do that, that's fine. But I couldn't get those people to come before the committee and offer testimony. And so we hit as far as we could go on this. And my committee did recently subpoena additional records that we are going through as they come from the department. I believe that if there's a smoking gun anywhere, the only place we'll really find it is in contemporaneous communications in the department. And so we're looking through those. I haven't stopped working on this issue, but unless we find something in those records, or unless there's suddenly a huge amount of people who want to come forward and offer this evidence, this firsthand account evidence, I don't see any benefit in bringing Director Gordon in to hear him say what he said before.
Zoe.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree that the number of deaths is horrific. The fact is that when you look at the data, Michigan was actually below the national average in nursing home deaths during this period of time. Senator, I'd like to move on to, as Chuck said, this 39 bill.
Well, Zoe, I think it's important to say, I mean, just because you're below average on saying doesn't mean that there wasn't something there. I mean, you'd have to look at all the other numbers. Yeah. Like I said, we didn't keep good statistics. Even the director said for 3 months, we kept very, very bad statistics. But remember, too, what happened in New York is exactly what you said, Zoe. They covered it up. That's what's burning Governor Cuomo right now, is the cover-up.
And that's what it sounds like these prosecutors possibly, if they are able to get money, would be trying to do, and Pete Lucito, former state senator, is. Moving on to the election bills, of which you are a sponsor of some, and also will be seeing many of them in your committee, 39 bills. So I've got, I don't know, maybe a dozen releases from different Republican senators throughout the day when these were released. And all of them said that folks have been hearing concerns directly from their constituents and from their voters. But nowhere in any of the releases were actual evidence of any kind of election fraud. Why do you think that is, right? That there is all of these voters that your constituents are hearing from, that there's an issue, and yet nothing seems to have been found in Michigan, including the Secretary of State doing an audit and saying there was no widespread abuse.
So not every bill in this package, in fact, I would say, in my estimation, less than a majority of these bills are issues that deal directly with fraud issues. And as my committee looked into the election and spent hundreds of hours dealing with this over the last several months, we found a lot of issues that deal with process, with antiquated laws, with, as the gentleman mentioned earlier, the problems that come from merging Props 2 and 3 into the way we do elections now. There's a lot of things to amend and to reform here, and to say that these are all generated by some by just about fraud, I don't think is a fair evaluation based on the work I did in the committee.
So that's what your Republican fellow senators said, though, in their statements. So those statements you think are inaccurate, then?
No, I would say if what you're relaying to me, they said was a lot of citizens expressed concern about the election, I think that that's very accurate. I've heard those concerns too. I've been meeting with citizens all over the state of Michigan, talking about what the committee found, what the committee didn't find, and sharing with them that there's real room for changes, amendments, reforms to our election law, some of which are directly going to impact voter integrity issues and maintain the security of our elections. Other ones that are going to help make sure process mistakes don't happen again that lead to people believing something fraudulent was going on.
Mr. Stokes.
Senator, when you hear organizations like Voters Not Politicians or ACLU or Democratic leaders say this smack of poll tax and discriminatory type of voting rules, what's your reaction to that?
Well, I think that's really unfortunate. I guess my next question always has to be, well, what in here do you find particularly connected to some sort of racial motivation or voter suppression motivation? Because most of these bills generated out of the work my committee's done. You'll see those connections when we issue our report soon. So I reject that because that's certainly not the motivation I had in getting these bills drafted.
I think they go to the fact that in 2018 in this state, the voters across the state said we want to make it easier for people to access their vote. And now they're saying that many of the things in this package they believe does just the opposite and makes it more difficult for people to be able to access the vote. And that's what they're pointing towards. And it feels as though this package of bills by legislators is going against what the majority of Michiganders said they wanted in 2018.
Many of these bills are directly making it simpler to vote or making voter access easier. But I always have to push back to some degree, too. I've been, party in the legislature here for 10 years, and I've seen a lot of different election bills over the years, and some of which were clearly driven by a motivation from one side or the other to try and eke out just that smidgen more advantage in the next election. Oh, if we get rid of straight party voting, that's going to help my side, or, whatever it was. When I look at these bills, I'm like, where in here do we see one party saying, boy, if we could just get this done, that's going to help our side just that little bit. And I don't see that. And that wasn't my motivation in these bills. And so I understand what you're talking about with what Props 2 and 3 did. And I look at a lot of these bills as simplifying additional access. But I also have to say that at what level do we completely eliminate every single barrier that is put in place as a security measure? And so and Props 2 and 3 didn't say send out unsolicited applications. That's an interpretation that the Secretary of State took on herself to go forward with. And I think, and through my investigation, I believe that it is a significant vulnerability to the system. And the hurdle that you create by saying you have to request that application or get on a permanent list that always sends it to you is such a very small hurdle, but yet provides a significant amount of security. What hurdles would people support if these aren't the ones they want to maintain a level of security to our elections?
Senator, in the wake of some major news on the gun issue this week, would you favor legislation to ban the purchase of assault weapons, sir?
How do you define an assault weapon, Tim?
How about an AK-47 for openers?
How do you define that?
Well, an automatic weapon that can shoot a lot of people in a short period of time.
Okay, but I mean, this is always, I mean, machine guns are not available for purchase, but you know, there's always this confusion over what is and what isn't. I mean, AR-15s, you know, people call these assault weapons, but yet they're just a very standard rifle in many ways, depending on how you configure it. And then, you know, Congress says, well, let's get rid of a certain, you know, oh, if it's got this kind of stock on it, as if that was, you know.
Senator, would you favor legislation? Would you favor legislation that would ban people from putting devices on their rifle to make them automatic? Would you support that?
I'd have to think about how that would get defined again, Tim, and what that would mean, and what that device might be used for. I mean, there's always this devil in the detail on these questions when it comes to gun issues.
Senator, thank you for joining us on our program.